Hello, I'm Adrian and welcome to Venom Comics Breakdown. As a lifelong fan of Venom, I take an in-depth look into his solo adventures. So join me as we analyze each and every element, from the art to the characters to the story and much more. Before we begin, this is your spoiler warning. On today's episode, we're taking a look at the epic crossover between Venom and Punisher and Venom Funeral Pyre. This mini-series starts with you being thrown into the middle of a gang attack in Oakland, California. In just a few panels, an innocent man's life is ended, a terrified witness escapes, and said witness goes to none other than our lethal protector, Venom. The scared boy tells Venom that he was saved by a fledgling undercover journalist, posing as a gang member, and if the cops don't intervene soon, he will be forced to eliminate someone to be formally initiated into the gang. The boy took this message to Venom instead, and Venom immediately jumps into action. The storyline was written by Carl Potts and illustrated by Tom Lyle. In this panel, you can see how Lyle has clearly inspired himself from Mark Bagley's work, but has added his own twist to Venom's design. Venom is certainly not as hulking as he was when he was being drawn by Ron Lim, and Lyle's design is much more reminiscent of Mark Bagley's realistic human proportions. The suit seems to enhance and engulf Mr. Brock's athletic form more than anything. Like Ron Lim, Tom Lyle has added a bit of expression in Venom's eyes, differentiating them from Bagley. The tongue and teeth remain as sharp and crazy as ever as well. Returning to the story at hand, we discover that the journalist Gray Russell went undercover in order to find out more about a former Hydra lab that his father worked at. Said lab now serves as a base for the gang he's pretending to be in. Furthermore, the Punisher hears about the innocent man's death at the hands of the gang on the radio and decides to see what's going on. Meanwhile, Venom is swinging his way towards where he hopes to find Gray, and thinks that going in stealthily to retrieve him will be the most effective way to accomplish his goal. He stops himself once he hears extremely loud gunfire and explosions, and realizes that someone has other plans. Frank Castle, or the Punisher, is currently mowing down every gang member that stands in his way. Whenever you have two heroes, or in this case anti-heroes, go up against each other, the conflict is always best when it's rooted in extremely clear and defined reasons as to why they are fighting each other instead of working together. In the film Captain America Civil War, for example, Cap and Iron Man fundamentally disagreed on the Sokovia Accords. In this case, Venom was hoping to accomplish his goals without being seen. The Punisher decided to go in guns blazing, wrecking Venom's chances of not being discovered. However, Venom doesn't immediately start fighting him, and knowing some of his background, does wonder if he will be a kindred spirit. Venom thus attempts to reason with the Punisher, explaining that he's trying to rescue an undercover journalist. But the Punisher doesn't want to listen to him at all, and immediately calls him a lunatic. This dialogue does set up an extremely interesting dynamic and theme that runs throughout this storyline. In theory, the Punisher and Venom both share extremely similar viewpoints in how they dispense justice. They don't rely on the authorities, like other heroes such as Spider-Man, to determine where the criminals end up. They instead are the sole judges of character. If they deem someone as scum or a punk or deserves to die, they will eliminate them. No doubt about it. But whereas Venom sees a kindred spirit in the Punisher, as he put it earlier, the Punisher doesn't like seeing his brand of justice on someone else. He thus reacts aggressively towards Venom and calls him an aforementioned lunatic. Venom is enraged and lunges at the Punisher, who swiftly responds with a gunshot. But Venom is left unfazed, as the symbiote makes him bulletproof. The battle goes just as one would expect it. The Punisher's weapons are useless against Venom, as Venom is stronger and faster than him. And that leads to these two awesome panels, where Venom punches a Punisher right into a wall, as he states,
"You had one shot and you missed, Punisher. We'll take many shots and never miss."
And just like that, the Punisher is defeated. So if you're wondering what a Venom versus Punisher battle would be, you got your official answer from Marvel. It would be no contest. Venom soon notices that the Punisher's earlier actions have caused an impromptu gang war, as nobody knows where the shots were coming from. Meanwhile, no one has come to save Gray Russell yet, and although he does find the Hydra lab he was looking for, they toss him a gun and expect him to initiate himself into the gang. Meanwhile, the Punisher has had enough time to regain consciousness and drags himself into his van. After a spectacular panel where Venom leaps off to attack, he gets blasted into oblivion with yet another sonic weapon. As I detailed in my Lethal Protector breakdown, this is a writing trope that continually rears its head time and time again. For some reason, everybody has access to sonic weapons. In this case, Frank Castle blasts him with directional trans sorcerers, which are able to hit Venom with ultrasonic frequencies. He backs Venom into a jail cell, and the symbiote is far too weak to assist him in breaking out. For all intents and purposes, Venom is trapped, and the undercover journalist will soon be made to choose to end someone's life or be eliminated himself. It's a very well done cliffhanger, and I'm glad I personally didn't have to wait to find out what happens. And nor do you, as we continue in this analysis of Funeral Pyre. The next issue commences with Venom using one of his symbiote tendrils to snake its way through an opening and right into the source of the sound in the Punisher's van. This is an excellent moment displaying the use of his superpowers, and just as effective as it was when he had to use his tendrils to disable the alarm system in Lethal Protector. Without the constant pain of the sonic weapon, he easily breaks out of his cell and quickly realizes he must go rescue Gray before it's too late. What follows is a great series of panels that tell a story that could only happen with Venom and the Punisher. The Punisher is brutally interrogating gang members, eliminating them left and right, and Venom finds his handiwork. Instead of lamenting the loss of their lives, as any normal superhero would do, he quickly moves on, relieved that the Punisher hasn't ended Russell, who has a distinctive birthmark on his neck. As a matter of fact, Venom even threatens to do the same kind of interrogation as the Punisher does, if he doesn't get the information he wants. Meanwhile, since nobody showed up to rescue Gray, he decides to end someone to be initiated rather than be eliminated himself. At this point, the story has fully embraced that it's dealing with three characters who are not all good or all bad, as they are firmly entrenched in a morally gray area. The Punisher is trying to rid this part of town of every single gang member, but by simply eliminating them and destroying public property. Venom is trying to rescue an undercover journalist, but by threatening to resort to the same lethal techniques as a Punisher does. And lastly, even said journalist isn't even undercover for a greater cause. It's for his own personal reasons of trying to make a name for himself. Spider-Man is not around to be the sole voice of good, and we are left with a trio of characters with questionable morals. Venom soon spots Punisher from above in another terrifically drawn panel, and can tell that Castle is about to be blown away by a shotgun, so he immediately sends his symbiote to protect him from the blast. The Punisher remarks on how his Kevlar armor alone wouldn't have shielded him, and is soon confronted by Venom, who requests that he just stay away from Gray Russell. It's important to note here how dramatically Venom has changed from his old revenge-fueled days. He could have easily let that guy shoot the Punisher, but he didn't. He chose to save him. And it's very telling that afterwards he didn't ask for his help, like he did with Spider-Man and Lethal Protector. He just asked him to stay away. Venom therefore hasn't developed the same level of trust he has with Spider-Man. He sees the Punisher as nothing but a nuisance to stay far away from, rather than a helpful crime-fighting partner like Spider-Man. And now we get to the reveal of the title character of the series, Pyre. Russell hears Punisher mowing down gang members outside, and is literally and figuratively backed into a corner in the lab trying to get away. He decides to flip the switch of the device, hoping that it will give him new superpowers. And it does. It turns him into a superheated microwave shooting monster. He of course is rather peeved at the state he's in, and immediately begins blasting the Punisher and anybody else who shows up, including Venom. Pyre blames Venom for showing up late, and thus making him choose to end someone's life. So now he wants to end his. Venom is blasted with microwave energy that heats him up just like his second weakness, fire, and tragically states that he got there to save him. And that engulfs a large part of why Venom struggles to be a hero so much, and a unique part to his character. He has the best intentions, whether it's saving an underground society like in Lethal Protector, or rescuing an undercover journalist in Funeral Pyre. But sometimes he's unfortunately dealt a very bad hand when he goes about trying to do something about it. In this case, the Punisher showed up, started an impromptu gang war, erasing any kind of stealth mission Venom had planned, and then locked him up, preventing him from saving Russell in time. So now he's finally found him, but Russell is a mutated freak who is bent on eliminating Venom. This typically doesn't happen in superhero stories, as although they may have difficulties, they do end up saving the day in the end. In Venom's case, he failed. He didn't arrive in time. This makes this otherworldly character oddly relatable, since as people, despite our best intentions and effort, we sometimes fail too. Returning to Pyre, after declaring it will soon be Venom's Funeral Pyre, he continues to blast Venom in the last issue of the series. He soon turns his attention towards the Punisher, giving Venom precious seconds to escape the endless bombardment of microwave rays. He laments on how he's partially responsible for his creation and has no idea if he should fight him. Meanwhile, the Punisher consults with his longtime ally, Microchip. He suggests a way to reprogram the energy wavelength to reflect it back onto Pyre, Venom is trying to lob different objects at Pyre instead of engaging him directly, but Pyre continues his attacks and is suddenly blasted with Punisher's aforementioned ray. But instead of defeating Pyre, it amplifies his power, as the Punisher messed up Microchip's instructions. Venom feels the intense pain caused by this amplification, and directs his hatred towards Punisher, but the Punisher doesn't want to deal with Venom, and instead fires grenades at Pyre. Venom comments at how Punisher may have just ended Pyre's life, and after a pithy remark from Castle, he runs over in an attempt to save Pyre. Unfortunately, Pyre has gone off the deep end. He keeps thinking Venom wants to eliminate him just as much as the Punisher does, and continues to blast at Venom. Venom is thus in a very tight spot. He indirectly created Pyre by not arriving on time, and thus doesn't want to end him. However, Pyre is insisting on destroying not only him, but everything around him. It's a similar predicament to the one Superman faced in Man of Steel. But Venom still finds a way to stop this without eliminating Pyre, like Superman eliminated Zod. He asks Pyre to forgive him, and uses his webbing to slime a large object on top of him, stopping the attack. He still offers to help him out, but Pyre insists on blasting him, causing even more explosions around Venom. He tries to snake in a tendril like last time with Roland Treese to pull him out of the fire, but his microwaves, combined with the explosions and fire, are too much and would kill Venom if he stayed. He thus regretfully leaves and confronts Punisher. Venom calls Punisher out on how his psychotic obsession, as he puts it, prevented him from saving Russell. Punisher fires back, remarking on how Pyre was never innocent in the first place, or he would have never ended someone's life. And then adds it would have been better if he had eliminated him before he shot anyone and turned into Pyre. Venom yells that he won't listen to his rants any further, but before he can act on it, the cops arrive and both anti-heroes bail. In the last panel, we discover that Pyre may have survived, and this was confirmed many years later in the comic book version of Civil War. So what exactly was said in this exchange? The Punisher claims that Gray Russell was never innocent since he ended someone's life, and then states it would have been better if he had eliminated Gray earlier, before he even turned into Pyre. At the end of the day, the Punisher is justifying ending someone's life in his own head, thinking that his judgment of people's character and morals is final, when it's most definitely not. Going back to his first conversation with Venom, where he calls him a lunatic, he has demonstrated that his morals and sense of justice are just as dark and twisted as those of Venom, if not even more so. Venom Funeral Pyre is an interesting and unique follow-up to Lethal Protector. While it may not have the epic scale or interesting twists and turns Lethal Protector had, as it's mostly a straightforward rescue mission gone awry, it doubled down on what would happen if a former supervillain is trying to become a superhero. He's not going to get everything right, as he's used to making sure things go wrong. He's not going to know exactly what to do in every situation, as he's used to being the one that causes the conflicts, not the one in charge of resolving them. Venom's character also takes a turn towards actions that firmly go in the territory of being a superhero. He chose to save the Punisher's life, even after he tortured and imprisoned him, and he continually tried to save Pyre despite being repeatedly attacked by him. He even asks for forgiveness from Pyre. All these things are something a supervillain is highly unlikely to do. The art was extremely well done throughout as well. None of the panels felt rushed, and the sense of composition in the frames was excellent. The story presented interesting themes of right and wrong, and truly shone a light on how similar Venom and the Punisher are when they go about dealing with people who they judge to be bad. All in all, despite the few shortcomings in the scope of the story, Funeral Pyre is a thought-provoking tale, full of great art, themes, and events. Venom Funeral Pyre thus receives 4.5 out of 5 stars. What did you think of the storyline? Which one should I analyze next? Let me know in the comments below, subscribe for more awesome content, and see you next time.